this year is our first session, and definitely you already know this program is presented or bring from Indian physician of South Florida. They're really interested to help our communities that have a knowledge, to increase their knowledge about this medical or health related information. This program is going on for the last few years, and every month we are trying our best to be put on every Sunday, third Sunday of the month. So please ask more and more people to come by and get help or get more information about the health.
This is for everybody, no senior.
No, it's for everybody. I did not use the word seniors. It's all health. Today's topic is very interesting topic, and everybody is interested, like to know, and very complicated. If someone is having the problem, don't like to follow, it's a very complicated situation. And because of the interest of these topics, we divided into two parts. So today is going to be the diabetic part 1, which is going to be presented by Dr. Anjali Bhasin. Most of you know, very dedicated physicians, and she's worked on Nova University. And I think Dr. Mehta already has introduced her, so besides taking extra time, please welcome Dr.
Thank you for your kind words. And I really appreciate all of you coming here today. And the fact that you are all here on a Sunday morning, that means you are interested in your health, taking care of your health and your family. That's both very important for you. So we chose this topic of diabetes because this is a very, very important topic. And believe it or not, we as Indians, we are number one in a lot of things, but we are also number one in diabetes. India has the highest prevalence of diabetes in the entire world. And same in USA. In US population, South Asians have the highest incidence of diabetes, followed closely by Hispanics and Africans. And when we divide with South Asians, Indians again have the highest prevalence of diabetes in USA amongst the South Asians. So it becomes a very important topic, and we will soon find out why it's so important. So what does the word diabetes come from? It comes from a Greek word. Diabetes means siphon or passing urine. So passing through. And mellitus means sweet or honey. So when a person starts passing a lot of urine that smells sweet, that is what the exact meaning of diabetes mellitus. So going over the prevalence. In the entire world, it is estimated around 300 people have diabetes, out of which 30 million people have diabetes in US. It was estimated that in India, 50 million people suffer from diabetes. That is from 2008 census, so we don't know what's the current number. And there is a very important entity called pre-diabetes. Pre-diabetes is a condition in which your sugar levels are above normal but are not yet in the diabetic range. So I hope my voice is clear. So in pre-diabetes, that's a chance given to a person that if you start taking some major health changes in your life, you could revert back to normal. And if you don't improve, you will go into diabetes soon. So the prevalence in Indian people is doubled. So our prevalence is 16% in India for diabetes. So who are at risk? And why we Indians have such a high prevalence of diabetes? Those were very interesting questions that came to my mind too. Then we found that there was a health assessment and risk ethnicity study done, which showed that we Indians have a thrifty gene. We have a special genotype called thrifty genotype, which was developed so that we could take care of ourselves during scarcity. Coming from an underdeveloped nation and malnutrition being one of the important factors, we have this scarcity, this thrifty genotype, which helps us to, in a condition of scarcity or malnutrition, we have increased adipose tissue deposition and increased deposition of fat in the body to help us survive. But when this person comes in a place where of abundance and there's a lot of food, then we develop diabetes. So that is a genetic predisposition. This is also found in Polynesian people because they have a similar background. So going over the risk factors, the most important risk factor, one is the genetics, family history, and obesity. So obesity is one of the major risk factors for diabetes. And it has been shown that if we are a couch potato, if we lie down and watch TV for 2 hours a day, every day, of inactivity like this, or watching TV for 2 hours, would lead to 20% increase. I'm sorry, what?
Your voice is going in and out. Go back between the speakers. Go back.
Sorry for that. So there is a 20% increase in prevalence of diabetes in a person who is inactive for more than 2 hours a day. Then if you have a history of heart disease, CAD, high blood pressure, again your chances of diabetes go up very high. Then family history occurs. There is a condition called polycystic ovarian disease. This is very common in young females, which they have irregular menstrual cycles and obesity. If a woman suffers from PCOS or polycystic ovarian disease, then that female is more prone to go for diabetes. And there is a thing called gestational diabetes, which develops during pregnancy. If during pregnancy the patient has gestational diabetes, then again your chances of going into diabetes type 2 later in life increases. Now this is talking about Indian diet. We are used to thalis and also unlimited chalu thali, especially in Gujarat and Rajasthan. There is a system of chalu thali and they will feed you with a lot of respect. It becomes hard for us to say no to that because in India it is considered rude to say no to food. And we would eat and eat until we cannot take any more. That is one of the biggest reasons why we cannot have this kind of food anymore. We have a sedentary lifestyle. We are not workers anymore. So we have to learn and change our culture and start saying no to food. And we have to stop even offering unnecessary extra food to the people, our guests, because in Indian culture we say Atithi Deva Bhav. We want to feed our guests like we are feeding gods. So that culture difference, we need to actually adapt the new culture of saying no to food and stay away from this kind of food. Now what happens once you become idle and lazy and a couch potato? Next step is your pancreas, which is the organ that produces insulin in your body. The pancreas is going to say, hey, I'm lazy too. So once your pancreas become lazy, your food is not going to be digested. There's going to be no insulin in your body. And that excess sugar is going to be a killer. So, question, if we have 10 chocolate bars and ate 9, what do we have? Maybe diabetes. So going over the symptoms of diabetes. 3 important symptoms to remember are the 3 P's of diabetes. P standing for polyuria, polydipsia, and polyphagia. Polyuria means the person suddenly starts passing a lot of urine, has to go to the bathroom very often, very frequently. Polydipsia means that you're very thirsty all the time, so looking for water and feeding all the time. And you're hungry. You start eating a lot and you lose weight. So anytime you have these kind of 3 P symptoms and you start losing weight, there is no need to be happy that you will feel, oh wow, I'm losing weight, because now the diabetes has already hit you. So diabetes starts when obese patients, you become more prone to develop diabetes. But once you have diabetes, you are going to lose weight, because the body is not going to utilize the food or the glucose and is now going to start using the fat in your body, because the body needs energy. So the patient starts to lose weight once they develop diabetes. So the symptoms of the diabetes, patient is going to be tired, going to the bathroom very frequently, will have weight loss, a non-healing wound or non-healing ulcer. Diabetic patients are very prone to infections, and these infections become difficult. And these infections become difficult to treat or heal. Then there will be problem of impotence. Patients will be always hungry. Blurry vision. Diabetes is the #1 cause of blindness, and the vision becomes very blurry. Because what happens if there is the water is transparent and light passes through. But if you dissolve glucose in water, it becomes hazy. Now this filament of glucose comes in front of your retina and everything becomes blurry. So any changes in vision, you need to check yourself for diabetes. Tingling or numbness in the feet due to diabetes neuropathy. And of course always thirsty, and yeast infections in private parts because of your increasingly prone to infections and yeast and all the bacteria, they love glucose. So once you have glucose in your body, you're going to attract all kinds of infections. Now going over the types of diabetes. There are two major types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2, and then we also have gestational diabetes. And there is a condition called pre-diabetes. Now this is your chance to improve. Once your doctor says that your blood sugar, your fasting sugar is between 100 and 126, that means that's a warning sign. And if you don't improve now, you don't do anything about it, soon you will be a diabetic, which comes with lots of complications. So you have to start exercising, taking care of your diet, and lose weight. Losing 15% of your body weight would revert any borderline diabetic person to normal. Because if you lose 15% body weight, your blood sugars go down by 20. So if your number is 126, after losing 15% of body weight, we are going to be having blood sugar of 106. So what is pre-diabetes? It is also called impaired fasting glucose. So these are important numbers to remember. If your fasting glucose is between 100 to 125, or your GTT, that is a glucose tolerance test, is between 140 to 190, or if your HbA1c is between 5.7 to 6.4. Now, how many of you in this crowd are either diabetic or borderline, pre-diabetic, or have a close family member like parents being diabetic? Let's see, in a small group, we have a high representation here. So, I would like to ask you, do you know what is HbA1c? So, anyone knows what is HbA1c?
It's the last 3 months test.
Very good. So, every diabetic or anyone who is taking care of a diabetic patient should definitely know what is HbA1c and what their numbers are. It is a test which tells us the glucose control over the last 3 months. And we should all know our numbers. For a diabetic person, our aim is that the number should be less than 7. And if the numbers are more than 9, if your HbA1c is more than 9, then definitely you really need to work very hard. Make sure you take your insulin on time. And otherwise, you're going to get a lot of complications soon. And for to diagnose diabetes, the number is 6.5. If HbA1c is 6.5, that means the patient has diabetes. So this is type 1 diabetes. This comprises 5 to 10% of all diabetic patients, and this is the most serious form of diabetes. This always requires insulin. It is also called insulin-dependent diabetes mellitus. This occurs in very young age. Patient may be in a school-going age or early college when it is diagnosed. And there is nothing that a person can do to prevent getting diabetes 1. Type 1 is genetically prone. It is autoimmune process. The pancreas suddenly stops making insulin, and this has a huge genetic role. What happens? We need insulin to take the glucose inside the cells. And if we don't have enough insulin, the glucose is not taken into the cell to produce energy, and it is lying in the bloodstream. So whatever food we eat in the stomach, it gets converted to glucose. and that is not absorbed by the cells, and it's going to be building up in your bloodstream. And this is going to have a lot of toxic effects in all the organ systems of the body. So it is 5% of all diabetic patients, and it is an autoimmune process in which the pancreas are destroyed, the islet cells are destroyed, and no more insulin is being produced in the body. So it's a genetic predisposition. It is strongly inherited, and again African and Asian ancestry has the highest predisposition. Now, type 2 diabetes, which is the most important diabetes, which we should all worry about at this age. It is also called maturity onset diabetes mellitus. Hits a person around the age of 40. If you're obese, not working out, and not taking care of a diet, and if you have a family, if you're prone, if you have a family member with diabetes, then you have to be very, very cautious, because diabetes can hit you anytime. So in this, what happens is there is insulin deficiency, and on top of insulin deficiency, there is resistance. The body has a resistance to insulin. So whatever insulin we have, our body is not responding to that. And this is more of a progressive disease and leads to very long-term complications. It does not really have a lot of acute complications like in diabetes type 1. Those patients have acute complications like DKA, called diabetic ketoacidosis, and hyperosmolar coma. Those patients, if they miss the insulin for 1 or 2 days, they may end up in the ICU for type 1. Type 2 does not have very serious acute complications, but it is more progressive and leads to long-term complications. So the symptoms, again, for diabetes type 2 is, it may be underdiagnosed for many years, so the damage may already be done. Once a person is diagnosed with diabetes type 2, that is actually the time that you need to go to the eye doctor and look for the eye damage, because the eye damage starts 5 years prior to the diagnosis. Patient will have increased thirst, increased passing more urine, always hungry, and weight loss. Then gestational diabetes. This occurs during pregnancy. So every patient, every pregnant female needs to follow up very closely with the OB/GYN doctors, and they will do a OGTT test, a glucose tolerance test. And if the patient has got borderline diabetes, because that will be very harmful for the fetus and the baby, so the patient will be needed to be treated for that. And the gestational diabetes, these patients may revert back to normal after pregnancy, but again they will be more prone to developing diabetes in the future. So how do we diagnose diabetes? These are very important numbers for you to remember, and you should go annually to your doctors for health screening. Otherwise, we have health fairs at least twice a year by IPOP, where we do finger stick glucose. We had one last week. So you should get your finger stick glucose at least once a year. And if your fasting glucose is more than 126, that's a very important number to remember. 126 means you have diabetes. And if the first glucose tolerance test, if it is more than 200, then the patient has diabetes. Or any time there's a random sugar of more than 200, that needs to be checked once more. And if the number remains to be more than 200, then again the patient is labeled and has diabetes. So for risk for complications. So once a person has diabetes, so what are the risks for the complications? So if you do not maintain your blood sugar, I mean, if you have diabetes, that's not the end of it. I mean, you can work hard, lose weight, eat right, and you can still be controlling your diabetes, and you will not let the diabetes go into complications. But if your blood sugars always remain high, you're not taking your medications or insulin, whatever was prescribed to you by doctors on time, then you'll be at more risk for complications. If the cholesterol is very high. So the bad cholesterol is called LDL, and the LDL for a normal person would be 130, which is okay. But for a diabetic patient, you need to maintain the LDL as low as 70 sometimes, so 70 to 100. So these patients always need to be on one of the cholesterol-lowering pills called statins. We need to maintain the blood pressure for diabetic patients. We cannot have a high blood pressure, because otherwise that leads to increased complications. We need to get up and start jogging, walking, whatever fitness exercise you can do, because if you have a sedentary lifestyle, then you're going to have more complications of diabetes. So the research has shown exercising 175 minutes per week. Strenuous exercise of 175 minutes per week decreases the prevalence of the chances of getting diabetes by 50%. So all of us now start to need to, get up, start exercising whatever way we can do. But a strenuous exercise at least 30 minutes a day, not daily, 5 days a week. And you have to stop smoking. So for diabetes management, these are, if anyone is a diabetic, would be knowing about the medicine metformin. That is a very important medication to be started in all diabetic patients because that's very helpful in all ways, but it also has a lot of side effects. So if anyone is on metformin, you have to make sure that you follow with the doctors regularly and get a blood test regularly because we have to watch for the creatinine level. If it goes high, then the metformin needs to be stopped. Other medications like glycoside, Actos, Genuvia. And if the diabetes is still not controlled, then the patient will be started on insulin. Sometimes 3 or 4 times a day of insulin. This patient needs to check their sugars regularly. So again, cholesterol management, blood pressure control, these are very important for a diabetic patient. And most of the diabetic patients would also need to be on aspirin. So aspirin is also used not only for primary prevention but for secondary prevention, especially in a male who has diabetes and is of age more than 50 years and a female more than 60 years. As diabetes or any and one or more of risk factors like a family history of diabetes or high blood pressure, high cholesterol, they also need to low dose aspirin. So now why is diabetes so important? What happens? Diabetes itself is not a killer, but the damages it causes to the entire body system and organs, that is the killer. So starting from head to toe, it involves most of the organs. It can lead to stroke. It is the #1 cause of blindness. And heart disease, CAD, coronary artery disease also associated with diabetes, high blood pressure. Renal disease. More than 50% of the dialysis patients are undergoing dialysis because of diabetes. So diabetes is the major cause of dialysis. So we have to protect the kidneys. Peripheral arterial disease, peripheral neuropathy. The peripheral arterial disease will lead to foot ulcers and amputations. And diabetes again is the #1 cause of amputations. Due to neuropathy, some people cannot even walk because of the neuropathy, because the sugars in your body are so toxic that it's toxic to the nerves and the foot problem. So we have, once the patient has diabetes, needs a regular checkup, needs to get the annual urine protein and creatinine levels, and because again this is a patient getting dialysis, and diabetes is the #1 cause of dialysis. These patients need to be on ACE inhibitors, that is kind of a blood pressure pills. If you're aware, the name starts like lisinopril, ramipril. And ACE inhibitors have been shown to protect the kidney. So every diabetic patient needs to be on an ACE inhibitor. Needs to get an annual eye examination for check for retinopathy, because again this is the #1 cause for blindness. And diabetic neuropathy. Once a year, the doctor is going to do a monofilament test and test the reflexes and see at the pressure points that the patient has the sensitivity or not. Because if not, we need to start the management with medicines like gabapentin, pain medications, and antidepressants. These antidepressants are useful for diabetic pain management. And also, most of the diabetics, if they are on insulin and the numbers are not controlled, they can go towards depression. So they may need antidepressants. Now, foot care. It is very important that once a year, every diabetic patient needs to go to a podiatrist, get a foot checked, and you have to take the care of the foot by applying moisturizers, keeping the foot clean, and avoid harsh agents like betadine or halogen peroxide on your feet. So you have to keep the toenails trimmed. Yes.
Is heel pain also one of the symptoms?
There will be generalized pain all throughout for every diabetic patient, but he'll say that if the pain becomes too much and we're not taking care of the feet, then we can go towards diabetic foot ulcer. So wearing clean socks, comfortable shoes all the time. So maintaining your foot hygiene, because if you don't do that, then you develop something like this called a diabetic foot ulcer, which becomes very problematic, very difficult to treat. And in the severe forms, it will lead to gangrene and amputation. So this was like I gave a gist of diabetes. And next month we have Dr. Pandya coming in, who is going to talk more into depth of the management. Today I'm just touching on the management. So for the control of hyperglycemia, these are the medications: metformin, sulfonylurea, DPP-4, insulin. Sometimes doctors may start you on insulin soon enough, and ideally now the census says that the insulin should be started sooner. But since the insulin, the patient needs to check their finger sticks, and they don't like to prick daily. So some of the patients may just opt for oral medications. Again, so smoking cessation, aspirin, cholesterol control, and blood pressure control. These are the most important things for control of a diabetic patient. Then once we have done that, then vaccinations. All the diabetic patients need to be vaccinated with pneumococcal vaccine. And this needs to be repeated once again, once they are 65 years of age. They need to get the flu vaccine, because diabetic patients, as we say, are more prone to all different kinds of infections. They need to be vaccinated for hepatitis B, because of so much of finger sticks going on. We need to protect ourselves from hepatitis B, and we need to update our DTaP or the tetanus shot.